Hello, my name's Justin McClure, and I'm here today with
Will Sloan.
And you're listening to the Important Cinema Club, and it's our end of the year blowout, the episode that everybody looks forward to, especially Mr. Will Sloan, right?
Yes, the episode where we give our top 10 movies of the previous year. I don't like this episode.
Wait, what? No!
Okay, here's the thing about these top 10 lists. They're very arbitrary. They never hold up to scrutiny.
Oh boy, no they don't, especially a few months afterwards.
And you look at everybody's top 10 lists, and for the most part, it's the same 20 or 30 movies. And we're going to be talking about movies on this episode. Some of them I saw 9 months ago. Some of them I saw a year and a half ago at TIFF.
I know exactly which one you're talking about, and it's on my list as well.
2 movies that I saw at TIFF 2017.
So when I approached my top 10 list this year, and just like you, it's not something that excites me. Before doing this podcast, I would never do it, because why? Like, nobody cares about our opinions. It's the same movies everybody else saw.
Yeah.
Like, if I was in different subcultures, or like, you know, South Korea was knocking out of the park in the mid-2000s, then I would have really interesting stuff to talk about. And unfortunately, I mean, maybe it's happening and I'm just not aware of it, but like, man, not a good year for Chinese cinema.
But I'm sure there are some national cinemas somewhere in the world.
And we're just not aware of them, or we haven't done our due diligence.
Yeah, or we're lazy. And
that's right. Yeah, doing your due diligence is the polite way of saying that. We
don't want to spend a week at the Iranian Film Festival, no matter.
That's right.
Even though they're probably very good.
Hey, if someone pays us to make this our full-time job, we would be there at the Iranian Film Festival.
I would love to.
So again, call out to any eccentric billionaires. So we'll do what we do every year, which is we go from the top and we each share one.
But before we get into it, what was your impression of 2018 in cinema?
It was fine.
Fine, yeah. Okay, as I get older, it's harder for me to make, big grandstanding judgments about the year, because I think of 2018 and I think, wait, what movie came out in 2018? Did it come out in 2017? Did it come out in 2016? Like, these years blur together the older I get. And I'm about to turn 30, folks. I'm very old.
I get very excited when a new movie comes out and I get to go see it. But as far as like things that like blew my mind when I was sitting in the cinema, I actually, I have to go look and be like, what came out this year? Oh yeah, that did.
I mean, I get less excited by fewer new movies, I think, each year, and I think that just comes from being older, don't you think?
Well, the things that you like have passed, and you want things to reflect the things that you like.
Also, we are no longer the target demographic.
No, we are not.
We're not in our early 20s and late teens anymore.
Even though you would not know that looking at some of the movies on my list. So we haven't seen each other's lists, so I'm hoping to shock people listening. And I'm hoping to be shocked by Will's list, because what's your number 10, Will?
My number 10, I think that, if these lists do anything, like, you've got to have at least a couple of movies on that people haven't heard of.
Yes.
That are under the radar. So the one that I've picked as my under the radar choice is an American independent film called Wobble Palace, directed by Eugene Kotliarenko. I'm sorry, what a terrible bastardization. Who also stars in the movie along with Dasha Nekrasova.
Never even heard of this one.
Host of the Red Scare podcast, interestingly enough. That
doesn't sound like a podcast I'd like.
You wouldn't. This is about a breakup of a young millennial couple taking place over a weekend. 2 millennials who live in Los Angeles, and they're living together, and they decide to split the house. They'll each spend, one day of the weekend at the house, and they can do whatever they want at the house. And really what it means is they just sort of go on Tinder trying to find people to hook up with, because they're in an open relationship, right? It's beautifully shot by Sean Price Williams, who's the Vilmos Zsigmond of micro-budget films this decade.
Love that guy.
One of the things I like about the movie is, like, it's a very millennial movie in the LA universe that it depicts. This world of struggling to pay the rent in your shitty apartment with your mattress on the floor, and you're in your mid to late 20s. It's like one of the few movies that I think has convincingly depicted the extreme online-ness of our generation. Like, it's done a good job showing, like, text messaging and Tinder and other social media visually.
Yeah, I don't think there's been enough short films of people just staring at their screens in rooms.
Okay, but this one I think did it better than most.
Is it funny?
Yes, it's very funny.
Oh, love it. Did you see it at NDFF?
No, it's a movie
shocking.
that would be. No, I watched it on iTunes. And also, the 2 main characters are very difficult main characters to be around in a way that I found refreshing. And also, I think it's an interesting movie just about the class situation of millennials, because like these two millennials, you know, they're kind of struggling millennials, but one of the characters is this other millennial who just like runs a startup, and he's super rich, and he's a Donald Trump supporter.
Ooh, I hate him already.
Yeah, it's full of difficult characters.
But if they're funny, I like to watch funny, difficult characters.
It's kind of Annie Hall-ish.
Okay.
Yeah. So I highly recommend it.
Well, I'm going to have to check that one out. I've never even heard about it. As I was saying to Will before we started recording, that my list, the previous years I've gone in going, all right, I want to introduce people to movies. I don't know if I'm going to do that this year, because I just want movies that I would buy on DVD or Blu-ray.
Okay.
Now, looking at my previous lists, I've gone, well, this is crazy. Why did I put this on my list? Like, even in the top 5. I'm like, I don't even own these films.
Name names. What are movies you regret putting on your list in the past?
I don't regret it, but Phantom Thread at number 1.
Oh, I think that's a good choice.
It is, but it's not a film that I'm going to be rushing to revisit anytime soon.
Okay.
And I think it's a very safe choice, and I think it's like, okay. And
I only want movies that make me look smart.
Yeah,
so.
that's right. I mean, if you want that, you're going to love my number 10, which I considered very deeply today. And I know that when people hear this movie, they will literally tear the earphones out of their ears and throw it against the wall. And that is, number 10 on my list, Aquaman.
Okay.
The reason for this is twofold. Number 1, I had so much fun with it. It's probably the most fun I had in theaters. And when I was watching it, what I was thinking was, why, when a movie with this much imagination and this much crazy stuff, most people would dismiss it when it comes from America, but if I saw it coming from Hong Kong, I'd be like, yeah, here we go.
Interesting. I mean, the reason that I haven't seen it yet is because the DC Comics movies...
Yes, are bad. Are very bad.
Yeah.
And I should clarify that, like, I don't like the DC comic book movies because they're real bad. I liked Wonder Woman, but I think that the reason I like Aquaman so much is that it's colorful, it's super imaginative, and most importantly, it's a direct kind of illustration of James Wan's passion. While the other DC movies are definitely extensions of like Zack Snyder's philosophies, this one is James Wan, which is like big and goofy. It's one of the first films that I've seen, like new ones in IMAX, where I've gone, wow, this feels like a big movie. And secondly, why I'm putting it on this list, just yesterday I had a conversation with someone who was like, I hate this movie. He's like, I hate it so much. And like, I don't understand why you like it. And I think that for me to just say stuff like, man, I had just had so much fun with this, and to just talk about why I had fun with it, that I think that's important. And I think that like, if this is a list of movies that I had the most fun with, Aquaman is definitely up there.
Your recommendation carries weight for me. I'm intrigued now.
And I should say that people that are obsessed with DC movies on social media scare me. And I don't think any of them listen to this podcast.
Yeah, and you're a member of the alt-right.
That's right.
Well, number 9 is The Aquaman of Paris, Let the Sunshine In by Claire Denis. It's... stars Juliette Binoche as a middle-aged divorcee looking for love in glamorous Paris. And Claire Denis is somebody who, I'm not an expert in her at all. In fact, certain of the movies, I would like to give her more of a shot, because she's somebody who has been a bit of a like dog whistle. What's the phrase I'm looking for? Like a frequency that I haven't quite picked up.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
Is dog whistle right? I don't know. Dog whistle.
No, dog whistle is something different. That means like it's getting your attention.
You know that frequency,
and they're doing it on purpose.
You know that frequency that dogs hear that others don't hear.
That's what you're trying to say.
Right,
yeah,
right. But I'm not trying to say that she's saying something racist.
No, you're looking around and you're like, wow, people really love her, and I don't understand why.
And I think it's definitely just me, but I really liked this movie.
No, I felt that way with her new movie that played at TIFF.
High Life?
Yeah, I didn't like it very much.
Okay, I'm interested to see that one. It sounds fucked up.
Yeah, it's not as fucked up as you want it to be.
But this was quite a friendly film, and, you know, it was full of moments, whether it's about dating or about sex or about just trying to connect in this crazy world that we live in, that felt very true. And it's, you know, not heavily narrative driven. It's sort of structured around her failed non-starting relationships with 3 men, each of them not ideal partners for her. But it's just full of these little moments that resonate and ring true very much. And I think it's very powerful in the way that it shows this very capable, smart, self-assured woman who, in trying to connect, finds herself in all these situations that are just a little bit unpromising or embarrassing, the way that happens for so many people. And of course, it has a great Gerard Depardieu cameo.
Oh, not starring role? I guess he can only do a couple of days now before he completely burns out.
He's like the shark in Jaws.
Yeah, and they're just talking about him, but when he shows up, whoa.
And Juliette Binoche is great. And the sex scenes in particular, I think, are very strong.
Did you see Double Lives? Oh, it had another title when it came out.
Double Lives?
Yeah, the Olivier Assayas film that came out.
No, I didn't. Did that actually come out, or was it just
I don't
at festivals?
think it came out. I think it just played festivals. It's a lot of fun, but you talking about that reminded me, especially the Juliette Binoche connection.
Okay, well, I like him very much, Assayas.
So you'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
My number 9 is one that I know Will didn't like that much, which was You Were Never Really Here with Joaquin Phoenix.
Oh, right. Oh, it was okay.
Yeah, it was one of those movies I actually ended up watching a bunch of times over a number of days with different people, and I think that it just speaks to me because it's playing with a certain genre of cinema that I really like and approaching it from a different angle, and I did find that very powerful, and 90 minutes, you can tell that story, beautiful.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, again, a movie that I saw 9 months ago, and I can't remember that well.
It's weird that a lot of my movies came out, like, in February or March, and they've just been on my list since then.
Joaquin Phoenix is an interesting presence in that movie, He has a certain gravitas to him where he doesn't have to do much.
And it says a lot about, like, revenge and what it means to enjoy revenge cinema and what you want from it, like, as the end point of these stories.
Like Old Boy.
Yeah, that's right. But it's not Old Boy. It's almost like an anti-Old Boy. Mm-hmm. And it's a film that... Didn't it win it won some award in an unfinished form at Cannes, I believe, didn't it?
I think it won Best Actor.
Oh, yeah, well, there you go.
I don't know, I could be wrong.
But I found it very powerful, and it's one that's completely slipped from anybody's conversation as we do all of our top 10 lists, so I'm putting it right back in there.
Well, number 8, and we're sticking in the art house for this next one, it is, in fact, Zama by Lucretia Martel, a movie that I don't think you were that crazy about.
It was fine. It was fun. Exactly what I thought it was going to be.
Well, I gotta say, I saw it at the TIFF Lightbox, and I think it benefits from seeing it in a theater because it becomes a very sort of weird and overwhelming kind of sensual experience, if that makes sense.
Well, it does.
It's the story of a Spanish officer, or I don't think he's originally Spanish, but he's serving the Spanish Empire in 18th century colonial Paraguay, who's waiting transfer to another part of the empire, and while he's there he slowly begins to realize that transfer is never going to come, and he's sort of stuck in this purgatorial state.
I mean, the film says right from the beginning is like, let me tell you about this fish that just swims upstream the entire time fighting the current and never getting anywhere. Wink wink, you get it and
everything's
I got it. 2 hours.
Everything's just a little off around here. His relationships, not only with the people in his immediate sphere, but also with the colonial subjects who are around them, who are always in the background, fanning people.
Yeah.
Not compelling to you.
No.
Didn't you like it as the movie got more and more surreal? And didn't you find it a little bit funny?
Yeah, I did find it very funny. Yeah. The llama that has been showing up everywhere in GIFs. I just didn't feel very, compelled by it. And I think it probably has something to do with I watched it at home on my couch, on the TV, and if I had been trapped in a theater with people laughing along with the movie, I think that maybe it would have added a different dimension to it, and that you're going along wondering where things are going, as opposed to me watching this movie and realizing I understand where things are going and the only place that it can end.
Sure.
And while it does end in a pretty humorous way as well, but it's definitely a theatrical experience that I had to have, which I did not.
Well, what's your number 8?
Probably it
is 8, right? We're at 8.
Yeah, we're at 8.
Okay.
It's the Zama of Netflix. It's The Night Comes for Us.
I don't even know it.
Oh, the martial arts film that came out that was directed by the guys who did Headshot.
Okay.
This is a movie that, if you want to pitch it to someone as a martial arts film, it's probably the most gory martial arts film I've seen since the story of Ricky.
I'm in.
Yeah, I'm shocked. I thought I had mentioned this to you.
Oh, maybe you did.
And it's from the director Timo Tchajanto. I know I'm saying that incorrectly. And it's about a guy who, while doing something very bad, decides to go against his employers. So a bunch of assassins come after him, and the film gets to play out these amazing, almost episodic set pieces that all play like their own little heroic bloodshed movies with like different characters. So you got like a fight in a meatpacking plant. So of course a lot of blades are being used in that. Guts spill out, like bones are broken and smashed into other people. And it's just very committed as like an action picture, and it's a film that I know that the director has been trying to get off the ground for almost a decade now. They kept announcing like, oh, we're gonna make it, and for it to be kind of dumped on Netflix is such a bummer, because while a lot of people talked about it, like you didn't even know that it had come out.
Yeah, I would love to see it now.
Yeah,
I'm sorry I didn't hear about it.
It's an Indonesian film, and it's so much fun. It was kind of a toss-up between this and a Filipino film called Buy Bust that I saw. But I actually...
Bang Bus?
Nope, not Bang Bust. It's called Buy Bust. Even though, yes, that is a terrible title, because that's all anybody can think of. And by that, I mean people who know Will Sloan, who explained to them what Bang Bust was. Yeah, it's a Filipino film that I rewatched it with some friends, and the first hour is really brutal. Like, nothing really happened. So unfortunately, the memory of the amazing experience I had in Times Square watching that film kind of just faded away. Even though it's a really strong film, and I would recommend people to check it out. But check out The Night Comes for Us first. What's your number 7, Will?
Well, number 7 is where the list gets even more irredeemably film Twitter-ish. Because...
Well, one of us has to do it.
Yeah, one of us has
We discussed it. We both, on Will's list, Aquaman was number 5, and we're like, listen, we can't do this, so we have to, split it between us.
Well, so 7, I'd like to pay tribute to a great auteur, Mr. Clint Eastwood, with a tie. A tie, I tell you.
Fuck. Okay, yeah.
The 1517 to Paris and The Mule. You're shaking your head.
I'm shaking my head.
What I find so moving about Clint Eastwood at this point in his career is the man is, 88 years old, and as recently as American Sniper and Sully, he was doing pretty slick entertainments with big action set pieces, very professional looking movies. And now he just wants to capture beauty. He doesn't care what rules that he conforms to.
Himself sleeping with beautiful naked women?
Yes.
Yes.
And, he looks at these 3 real heroes, these 3 unremarkable people, and he finds beauty in their sheer affectlessness.
Yeah.
And I mean, when I saw the 1517 to Paris, like I was taken aback by it. It's like, this is barely a professional film, and it's being
so that is what has value in your eyes, the fact that a man like Clint Eastwood, who's worked in the Hollywood system, is not only still making movies at this age, but he's making barely competent movies.
He's making these movies.
Yes.
And, the 1517 to Paris, like, he cast these 3 guys, like, for a reason. He's trying to make a point that, like, these guys really are unremarkable. Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. There was nothing great about these guys until that moment.
You don't think it was Clint Eastwood went like, I don't want to have to go through a casting process. Let's just these guys.
Okay, but no, he just came off a movie with Tom Hanks.
Yeah,
okay?
he did, yeah.
He can get big people. But then he also, like, kind of loves these guys, too. He loves how unremarkable. He loves following them around at a club or ordering gelato or, just vacationing, backpacking around Europe. And then when the action scene comes, it's really well done. And it's like really funny, and it feels good. 1517 to Paris. It's just a great experience.
I didn't watch it. So
oh, come on.
I know, I haven't seen it.
Okay, well, The Mule, which you have seen.
I did.
And which I think
went to go see at the theater all by myself.
I think you were only moderate on it. I just love spending 2 hours with Clint. But I also love...
Clint Eastwood is such a bad person, though. And because that movie is all about how awesome he is, even though...
he's bad to his family.
He's bad to his family, but he still wins their hearts at the end.
Yeah. And you also resent, though, the kind of extra textual quality that he brings. The fact that we're supposed to read it, not just as the character, but you're supposed to read this as Clint Eastwood.
Yes, you are. Like, yeah. I don't think there's... Even though that there's a running gag that people thinks that he sounds like Jimmy Stewart, which I'm like, wait, what? Because I don't think so. But, like, the trailers... had me looking forward to something that the movie didn't deliver. And I know
thriller.
Not even a thriller, but the story of like a bad man doing a bad thing for the people that he loves. I thought that was a story I was going into, and that's not why I was kind of lukewarm on the movie. I was lukewarm on the movie because the movie's about how awesome Clint Eastwood is.
Well, he misses his daughter's wedding.
He does. But man, everybody else loves him, doesn't he?
Sure, everyone else loves him. It's like Clint Eastwood himself. He's done terrible things to the people around him,
But everyone loves him. There's 2 scenes where he sleeps with 2 women at the same time.
So he has 2 threesomes. Yeah,
2 threesomes.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
In that role, didn't you love the scene where he was partying at the drug cartels? The mansion.
Oh boy!
And
he's like grabbing the woman's butt.
He's looking at butts. He's feeling butts. He's just having to. I mean, it's a movie loaded with exquisite moments of him eating ice cream sandwiches,
or just eating
driving.
a pulled pork sandwich,
wonderful.
or singing so charmingly that his handler starts singing along with him as well.
And this is another thing I love about the movie. Like, it's just a very good feeling movie.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is nice in this movie and is trying to be a good person, except the edifice of the Drug Enforcement Agency, which is bad and inefficient because Clint doesn't like pencil pushing bureaucrats, and maybe 1 or 2 of the drug lords.
But what does it say about the government? I guess it's because like the government is not helping like veterans and stuff like that, so it's up to the individual using the systems of capitalism to get in there and to fund these associations.
Well, I mean, capitalism has destroyed Clint Eastwood,
yes.
And then the only way he can rebuild his life is through this cartel.
So what is good? Capitalism, or is it the illegal going beyond?
What's bad are these pencil pushing bureaucrats who are wasting a ton of money just to arrest Clint Eastwood.
Yeah,
who's useless.
They need it to be on the books. They even say that themselves. Yeah. They're like, we need a high profile bust.
So they're the bad guys, and also a couple of the drug lords who kill people.
Yes,
but some of the other drug people
funny
are
that you never
fun.
See any drug users in this movie.
Yeah,
Clint Eastwood
does that need to be spelled out?
No,
for
it
us?
doesn't. No,
yeah.
I mean, if anything, I hope in my old age I can also start running drugs. Because it seems like a fun activity.
One more thing about this movie before we move on. Were you compelled by his vision of America? I mean, the Legion halls and the shitty diners and the dilapidated front yards of this movie. It feels very true to me. It feels it's an America that feels very real and that I don't often see in movies.
Yeah, and that Clint Eastwood himself probably doesn't visit very often.
Who knows? Maybe he's in touch with it, even if he doesn't visit it.
It does feel real, but at the same time, we were discussing this a little bit earlier, that there's some like weird jokes in the movie that seem to be like...
Okay, the race stuff.
Oh, but there's a whole bunch of stuff. Like, it's a joke, but at the same time, it's like the audience... I don't know, man. It just rubbed me the wrong way.
Sure, I get it. But I also think Clint Eastwood is smarter and more engaged with race in this movie than ostensibly liberal filmmakers like the Coen brothers are in Ballad of Buster
100%.
Scruggs. Like, he's very conscious of it.
Yes, but then he may be conscious of it, but the direction he's pushing it in is one that I'm like, I don't know about that.
Sure. Anyway, so you agree that it's a masterpiece?
Masterpiece. The Mule is so good, and it's definitely his...
It's his, the Man Who Shot Liberty Valance.
No. What am I thinking of? The Jerry Lewis.
It's his Max Rose.
Max Rose. Because Clint Eastwood has never looked more old on screen in this movie, and that's something that really struck me throughout the entire thing. And I was really excited when it started playing, because I'm like, wow, he feels like an old, real person that just kicks all kinds of ass. I'm really shocked that, like, there's the scene where he's held up at gunpoint and they're going to kill him. And then you don't see what happens, and later on you see him driving all bloody and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, that Clint Eastwood didn't just shoot a scene where he was awesome and he killed them all and he used martial arts.
He's not cool anymore. Isn't that interesting? Like, I mean, he's cool because he's Clint Eastwood, but
the movie portrays him as a good, not cool, but like...
But he's pathetic, like, physically and
everything. He looks
everything.
like everybody's grandpa.
Yeah.
Like, thin, pants too high.
And that took me aback.
Yes.
I'm not used to seeing Clint
But he
Eastwood
can
like
still
that.
fuck.
He can still fuck.
Yeah.
And he probably still does fuck in real life.
Oh, so all the time.
Good on him,
So my number...
Rest in peace, Sandra Locke.
8. Oh, yeah. That's right. I'm glad you can bring Sandra Locke up at the end of this, which... At the end, Clint Eastwood has a moment of reconciliation where someone tells him, I'm just glad you're here, as they're dying. I do not think that happened between him and Sandra Locke.
Right.
For the record.
Well, we're not reviewing him as a man.
No, we're reviewing the movie.
Even though he is almost certainly a wonderful man as well. All right. What's your number 7?
Blind Spotting from 2018. Did you see that one?
No, I didn't. I saw Train Spotting 2, though.
Blind Spotting, which is a film by... Carlos Lopez Estrada, who's mostly a music video director and was written by Rafael Casal and David Diggs, and they both star in the movie. It's kind of like a couple days in the life of two friends from Oakland. One of them who is on probation, he has 3 days left. He witnesses a shooting at the beginning of the movie, but that's not really like a suspense mechanism. It's just what happens throughout these last days of his probation and what it means to be like gentrified and to identify of where you come from and race and all that other fun stuff. And it's just a great movie that's like light but deals with like really heavy subject matter in a way that is fun to watch. And I've watched it multiple times over the year with a bunch of people. And it's one of those films that everybody's like, oh yeah, that's right, that came out. I didn't get to see it. And the fact that the two stars of the movie, David Diggs, who really blew up when he starred in the first run of Hamilton, and Rafael Casal, who is a poet who plays his best friend in the movie and is not an actor, and it's because they were both friends in real life since they were kids. So that kind of chemistry is on screen throughout and about like their relationship at like a heightened level.
Sounds good.
Yep. It's a movie that a lot of people have said, wow, I watched it on a plane and it was amazing. So I would definitely recommend to see Blindspotting. What's your next one, Will?
Well, number 6, I wouldn't necessarily recommend watching on a plane because you should watch it on a big screen.
I think we have the same movie at number 6.
Mission Impossible Fallout?
Yeah.
Good
Great
film.
Mind. The art and the working class finally come together.
The snobs and the slobs.
Yep.
I mean, what is not to like about this movie?
If you hate Tom Cruise as a person...
I mean, then you'll love watching him fall and hurt himself
and break his foot on screen.
Yeah, you know, we don't really have to spend too much time talking about what's great about it, but although we could,
yeah, we could easily.
I mean, what I would like to. These movies have mirrored Tom Cruise's career.
Yeah, we talked about that in the Tom Cruise episode.
Yeah, like he, you know, in the early ones, he used to fuck and he used to be really cool and charismatic, and now he's
getting his Jackie Chan era as he gets older.
He's no time for romance anymore. You know, he's busy saving the world. What must Tom Cruise do on talk shows now? He can't talk about anything.
Does he even go on talk shows anymore?
I think he does.
I mean, he just talks about the stunts that he does and movies. Movies are his life. Tom Cruise is an empty shell, and this is all that he has.
Yeah, and you know, it's amazing that the Mission Impossible movies have been able to make it work because, like, as I think I might have said on our episode about him, like, they rely so much on Tom Cruise as a star text and as a screen presence, and it's as if these recent ones are saying to you, okay, you don't like Tom Cruise, you think he's crazy, we're going to make that work for you.
Well, I think that Christopher McQuarrie, who wrote and directed this film, is very smart.
Yeah.
If you ever hear him talk, he considers film a very organic medium and that he's very open. I think there's 8 hours of podcast that he did with the Empire Film Network of him just talking about what the process of the film was. The fact that they were shooting this film, I don't know how this happens, and only half the script was written. So they were like making it up as it was going along and test screening and what works and what doesn't.
I mean, that makes sense to me because I could not pass a test on what the plot is.
No,
I remember
no idea.
6 scenes probably
That just
you know?
pop and are like, wow,
like
these
that,
are crazy.
Like that bathroom fight scene.
Oh, so good.
Incredible. And, you know, the last scene when he's, like, flying the helicopter.
And dangling. But even,
amazing.
like that scene is also intercut with 2 other things going on at the same time.
Yeah.
And it just flows so perfectly. That movie's so much fun.
You know that festival, the True False Film Festival, where it's like documentary fiction hybrid stuff?
They should show the Mission Impossible movies.
They could.
Yeah, they should. Hosted by us.
Yes.
I guess I'll take the number 5 then.
Yeah, go for it.
Which is Paddington 2. Love
Okay.
that bear. Did you see it?
You know, I haven't seen it, and I'll tell you why I haven't seen it. This is totally not fair.
Because Twitter loves it so much?
Yeah, because I saw so many people on Twitter saying stuff like, you know, in the time of Donald Trump, we really need the kindness of Paddington. And I thought, you're grown adults.
Yeah, but what difference does it make if this movie makes them feel good?
You know what? I'm sure it's a lovely movie too.
I love
should
it.
See it.
Tears at the end. Tears.
Yeah.
I watched it again with Emily on New Year's Eve, and just at the end, she's like, "Are you crying?" I'm like, "The bear gets to bring his bear aunt." Oh, it's so beautiful.
Well, he looks like a very cute bear.
Yeah, he's a very cute bear.
And Hugh Grant is in it.
Yeah, who plays a very arrogant actor who says he wants to put on a one-man show because the other actors dilute his performance, and lives in a house that just has photos of young Hugh Grant everywhere.
And isn't Paddington like an immigrant?
Well, that's how it's treated, yes. Right. That he's an immigrant and like somebody on the street wants him to like get out of his country. He's like, I never trusted that bear. And stuff like that. And like it's a movie that's like so imaginative and so much fun. And like it's not just cute and like optimistic. It's just very carefully put together in a way that, like, unfortunately, a lot of kids' films aren't, because a lot of people making kids' films will go, well, who cares? It's a kids' movie, right? The people behind this did not think that way. And I think that makes a big difference when it comes to these kind of movies.
Justin, my pledge to you and to the listeners is that soon I will see Paddington 2.
Hey, you have a significant other now that you could watch this movie with when she's like, well, I want to watch a movie.
Well, sure. And, you know, I think in normal political times I would have seen it. But now...
But you gotta stay angry.
Well, my brain has just been fried and destroyed by Twitter.
Twitter's the worst.
Yeah, so I don't know. So my number 5 is Burning by Lee Chang-dong.
I haven't seen Burning.
Have you seen it?
No,
okay.
yeah.
I mean, I don't have much to add to what everybody else has said.
Yeah, it was on Obama's top 15 as well.
Yeah, and I think it's on most top 10 lists. And it's... God, this is the part of the...
Maybe I avoided it because I'm like, I don't want it on my top 10 list. Like, you know what? I'm going to watch Burning tonight.
This is the part when I don't like doing this episode every
Yeah.
year, because I just feel like...
What am I going to say?
Regurgitating what everybody else has said. But, you know, shortly, it's a very enveloping story. Mm-hmm. It's very suspenseful. And it's, you know, one of the smartest movies this year about class. And yeah, Yeah, class. Well, I'm not getting into it further. You all know. Many of you have probably seen it. And it's beautifully shot.
Yeah, but they want this movie on the list so they can go, I put that on my list as well.
Well,
there you go.
I'm sure it's on their list too.
Number 4, Bodied for me.
Okay, we have the same number 4.
Oh, we do? Bodied?
Yes,
wow.
That is my number 4 as well. So let's talk about Bodied.
What else do we have to say? We did a whole episode on it on Patreon.
But that was a while ago, so
Yeah.
I think we can get into it again. What's it about?
It's about a young white university student who's writing a thesis on the use of the N-word in rap music, who gets involved in the battle rap scene, and it comes to light that he is a very good battle rapper. And then the film starts tackling the idea of, like, but what does that mean as, like, a white kid doing this?
And the battle rap, like, in these battle rap battles, everybody is picking, you know, whatever is the most obvious stereotype about the race or gender of the other person that they're battling, and using that. So, like, when he's you know, making fun of black people or whatever, what does that mean? You know, does he have great artistry in battle rap? And what is the line between where do ethics come into play?
Like, one opponent goes, well, your jokes were about me being Korean, like all the racist stuff you said. That's pretty good. Most people just think I'm Chinese.
And meanwhile, he has a girlfriend who is, I don't want to say an SJW. But I think Joseph Kahn would say that, right?
Yeah. I love Joseph Kahn as a filmmaker. Speaking of the hell that is Twitter, oh boy.
Yeah. But, and you know, I kind of wish that Bodied had come out, like...
As a big movie?
As a big movie, but right after TIFF 2017, instead of staying on the shelf here, because I feel like it would have popped more had it come out right at that time, because I think by the time it actually did come out in theaters, a lot of people, including probably me and you, were a little bit tired of the campus PC debate, you know?
No, I don't follow that stuff, so I was good.
Well, but it's just like, weren't you always tired of hearing about that stuff?
Anytime anyone goes like, you know, these PC people who can't, I just disconnect automatically.
No, me too.
Yeah,
but that is one of the subjects of this movie.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Yeah. And it does it in a very smart way.
And the thing is, if you watch like the first 30 minutes, that is not the movie that the film ends like.
Yeah.
So I could see, especially that it's on YouTube, right? So people may just watch for 30 minutes and be like, ooh, I don't want this. Like, we heard as the months went by that, like, film festival after film festival turned this film down because they're like, well, it's very offensive and we don't want to, like, you know, ruffle any feathers.
But it's not, though.
It's not.
It's always on the right.
Yeah.
It always
and the way that
the
it
line.
ends, if you explained it to somebody and you just explained the ending, you went, oh, I don't like that. But, like, that's what the movie's about. And, like, the movie's aware of that. And that's a discussion that it's having.
And it's also just, like, a really electrifying movie. It was such a great experience watching it at Midnight Madness in 2017.
So good.
Yeah.
So my number 3 is... Speaking of South Korean films, 1987, When the Day Comes. Now, this is a film that I should have watched earlier in the year when it came out. It's actually available on Amazon Prime if you're in the US right now, I believe. And it came to my attention because, I mean, unfortunately, I used to be so, like, keyed in of what was coming out in South Korea. Like, thanks to websites like twitchfilm.net and stuff like that. And it's weird that, like, there's more, like, people talking about movies now than ever, but that avenue has completely disappeared for me because, you know, websites aren't being paid to cover this stuff. Mm-hmm. So, like, they're not doing it anymore. So, like, South Korean or Indian or even Chinese movies come out and we're like, whoa, I didn't even know this movie was coming out.
Yeah.
Because we're so lost in it. But this movie is from the director of Save the Green Planet, a film that came out in 2003, and it's a film that I love. And the director, unfortunately, he just kind of disappeared for a long time. He released a film called A Monster Boy in 2013, which was okay. But 1987, When the Day Comes, is the story of a big political event that happened in South Korea, going from kind of like I'm going to get all the political terminology wrong, but like more of a totalitarian state to more of a democratic one, and like what led to those changes. And it's over like pretty compressed period of time. And the director described it best as, he said, it's a relay race. So you'll follow one character for a while, and then it'll kind of hand off to the next character, and then you follow them up until an event that is very famous in South Korea that I had never heard of before. And it's just like that perfect South Korean, like, this is a movie that has everything, and it's doing it so perfectly. Like, it can be a political procedure, there can be suddenly a chase scene out of nowhere, it can be a romantic comedy, and then it can be like heavy melodrama as it gets to the end.
I think you put it well, that is a testament to the more
diluted
nature of how Asian movie news is reported or disseminated.
It's just gone.
I just had no idea that the director of Save the Green Planet had a new movie.
Yeah, and that's like crazy to me. Like, I guess maybe was I more regimented on the websites that I went to back in the day, or like things change. Like, I know I said twitchfilm.net. That's not what it's called anymore. It's called Screen Anarchy. And like when they switched to a thing where you have to click through slides through every articles, I just kind of stopped reading it because I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I can't absorb the information this way.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe that's just what it is as technology advances and the way that we get information is different, we're getting less of it in a less specific way, I guess, or less value. It's terrible. I wish I knew all these movies coming out, and I used to.
Yeah.
So frustrating.
So number 3 for me is The Favorite by the divisive Yorgos Lanthimos. And I really loved this movie. I was really taken aback by how much I liked it.
I thought you were like a Yorgos kind of like, meh.
I was a skeptic, but this movie definitely brought me on his side. I like the way that he depicts the royal court as just an absolutely amoral cesspool.
Yeah.
And like he creates this sort of dichotomy between, you've got the brothel and you've got the royal court, and the Emma Stone character can end up in one of these places. These are the two options for her. And morally, what is the difference between them, right?
I like this movie, but I wanted to love it, and I didn't love it, and I couldn't understand why, because I'm sitting there watching it, I'm like, oh, I like all these things. I like the way that he's telling this story, the way that he decided to film it all in kind of like panning tracking shots with big wide-angle lenses.
I like that too.
The opulence of it all.
Well, I mean, I liked his weird fisheye lenses and stuff because it just adds to the sense of how kind of crazy and alienating this royal palace
I love the performances from like Olivia Colman and Emma Stone.
I think it's I also found it very moving, the chess game that the three central characters play with each other, and how sex in this world is this very valuable commodity. It's a weapon. It's a bartering chip. It's also something that a very lonely person can have, like, to just fill the aching void in her soul. Like I don't think the Olivia Colman character, the Queen, is necessarily gay, but like sex is just with these two women is just something that like is a nice feeling to interrupt the agony of the rest of her life, I mean, if people haven't checked it out, I would definitely say watch it. And it's a very funny movie as well. I like the jaundiced eye with which it regarded these systems of power. Like, there's a war going on in this movie, and the war is something that occasionally comes into the room, and they say, Your Majesty, this is what we want to do in the war. Should we do this? And then it goes off, and it's like somewhere people are dying.
But it doesn't matter because it's all being affected by these three interpersonal relationships. So number 2, and I know it's going to be your number 1, Will. So it's The Other Side of the Wind.
I know what your number 1 is now.
Yeah, you do. So let's talk about... You know what? Let's talk about what my number 1 is, and then we'll talk about The Other Side of the Wind, because we can both talk about it.
Wait, I've got a number 2 as well.
Oh, do you? Do your number 2, yeah.
It's First Reformed by Paul Schrader.
Yeah.
Did you forget about it?
No, I remembered it, but I was like, I love First Reformed so much when I saw it, but I haven't watched it since then.
Yeah, okay, I haven't either, and I loved it when I saw it, and like, I have this sense, I should have seen it again before doing this podcast, but It does feel kind of like the movie of the year in a way. Like Ethan Hawke is this priest at this fake church, this tourist trap church that's like the oldest church in wherever it is, and he learns from this parishioner who has killed himself about the impending climate apocalypse.
Yes.
And he's saying, why can't we use our pulpit to talk about this? Like, this is God's earth. We need to do something about this. And Cedric the Entertainer is there to tell him, look, you don't understand. This is a fake church. It doesn't matter. That's not what you're here for. And I don't know. Is there any better metaphor for America?
And it's such a funny film, too.
Yeah.
I mean, don't look at what Paul Schrader's saying on social media. Just enjoy the film for what it is.
Sometimes he's funny on social media.
Yeah, but he's an old man.
He's like the old Joseph Kahn.
Yeah, that's right. The old man Joseph Kahn, the Paul Schrader of our generation.
Okay, so now let's talk about your number one, which I saw yesterday.
Yeah, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Now, I started this list by saying that this is a list of stuff that I like the most. Now, I saw Aquaman and Mary Poppins Returns and Spider-Man yesterday with Emily. She liked Aquaman the most. She's like, I had the most fun with that one. And I can completely understand that. Spider-Man for me is weird because it's something that I became aware of very young and it meant a lot to me. So to see a movie like this come out that just plays to all of my likes, whether it be like animation, which I love, Spider-Man, and the idea that like the story is all about like, anyone could be Spider-Man. It doesn't matter who you are or what your background is. That's fun to me. And especially when it involves multiple realities, variations on a theme, which is my favorite kind of stuff. And Nicolas Cage doing his Bogart impersonation from the end of Dog Eat Dog, the Paul Schrader film.
Which somehow missed my list last year.
Yeah. And I think that I just find very powerful, and that the fact that a movie like this exists kind of blows my mind. And it's funny because when I left with Emily, she's like, do you have any of those Spider-Man noir comics? And I'm like, no, that was just a miniseries that came out a few years ago. But like the fact that conversations like that are happening with people, especially when you talk about superheroes, it's white guys. Like that's who superheroes are, right? And that's one of the reasons where you're like, like I don't want to watch these. And finally you can have a movie about a bunch of people. That's fun to me.
I think it's a really good movie. I think the story works.
Yeah.
I think it's brilliantly animated. Like really brilliantly animated. Like,
well, I think revolution, like no animated film, especially on
I've
this
never seen
level.
anything that looked like quite like this.
Nah.
And the New York in the movie is incredibly well done. And that final, it gave me a headache watching the final action set piece. Why is it not on my list? Because I knew it'd be on your list.
Yeah, you knew it was going to be on my list.
We were going to talk about it.
Yeah, so. And it's something that like I feel will be rediscovered in a way because it made money at the box office, but it wasn't like a hit like Sony expected. It was no Venom, if you will.
It's I think probably making similar
Speed
money
Racer.
to what like the Lego Batman movie made.
Yeah.
Which is like, I don't know, maybe there's something, maybe audiences, obviously it's made a significant amount of money, but there's...
Aquaman made so much more money than it, which is crazy.
This movie and the Lego Batman movie are very sort of jokey and self-referential, and they seem to be taken as, fans only propositions.
Do you think that's what it is? Like,
I guess so. I don't know how else to explain it.
I can only marvel that a movie like this, Marvel pun, it came out to theaters and it involves multiple Spider-Man, like the same Spider-Man dies at the beginning and then a new one replaces him, and that most audiences are fine with it, which just goes to show that like studio execs who are so terrified of anything challenging, and this is not a challenging movie, but it is a lot to wrap your head around when you're watching it.
It's a very dense experience. Yes. There's a lot going on, but I do think it is a very savvy piece of like brand management. I'm not saying that in a bad or an insulting way, but what the movie is saying is Spider-Man, the story of Spider-Man, the image of Spider-Man, its iconography is so strong and so powerful and so iconic that it can go into all these different directions and it's still fundamentally Spider-Man and it will work.
Well, what's crazy about that idea is that Spider-Man is such a weird superhero. He's a spider-based superhero. There's nothing attractive to that instinctively. Someone like Superman or Batman, like they're cool things, right? A spider is not necessarily cool.
You don't think spiders are cool?
Spiders, yeah, they're fine.
Yeah.
But like, as far as like someone who like, he shoots webs out of his hands, like that's such a specific thing.
Yeah.
And the idea that it can kind of go around like this. And if you look at a more optimistic way, is the idea of like, a kid in the theater, it doesn't have to be some white guy up on screen that they see doing all this stuff. And I think that's important too. As a white guy who gets to see myself up there all the time, that it matters.
So my number one is actually a bit of a cheat because yes, it's The Other Side of the Wind, but I'm tying it with Bill Gunn's Personal Problems.
Nah, you can't do that.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can. It's
you can do whatever you want. You're right.
Yeah, who gives a shit?
My number one, Twin Peaks: The Return.
Well, yeah, Personal Problems. It's on plenty of top 10 lists this year.
Oh, is it?
I don't know if you've seen it. I think it was like number 15.
You're right. It never really came out. So,
and also, it never came out in this form.
Yes, that's true. There was an edited kind of theatrical version of it.
And I think these two movies work well together because in addition to being two like really electrifying experiences, they're like full course meals. And also they're movies where this auteur cedes a lot of control. They're very kind of collaborative and participatory experiences. And I mean also participatory for the audience. Like they seem to be, the films aesthetically, it's almost like they're rebuilding cinema from the ground up or trying to. And I can imagine the viewer watching them many times and choosing to like latch on to different characters or follow different threads. Or, I can imagine the viewers relationship with the stories and the characters just changing. And
have you watched The Other Side of the Wind since you watched it with me?
No, I'm waiting
for it. It's never gonna happen.
It might happen that I might see it in a theater soon.
Yeah,
it might happen. But yeah, they feel like choose your own adventure movies, while also like having just a lot to say. I don't know. I'm babbling because like there's so much in these movies.
We talked about The Other Side of the Wind at length in a Patreon episode, so you should check that out if you want us to hear us go at length about it. And it's my number two, of course.
And we talked about Personal Problems in the Bill Gunn episode.
Yeah, that's right. You know what almost made it on my list was Unsane. I love that movie.
Oh, I really like it. Yeah, I considered it too. Yeah.
And it just kind of got squeezed out.
Maybe if I had seen it
closer to here,
I don't know.
But that's one that has left the conversation, and Steven Soderbergh has said that pretty much all his movies are going to go to Netflix now, because why not? They'll give him the money to do it. All right, so I guess that's our top 10 list, and you won't have to do this for another year, Will.
Yeah,
unless we all die before then.
I like making the list. It's just having to talk about these movies that I saw 9 months ago.
That's right.
I don't know.
And then for me to ask, have you seen it since then? And you're like, no.
No, and I'll probably never see it again. Although I think my number ones I will see again sometime.
Yeah, I think Personal Problems is one that I heard from a guy that works at Kino said that it hasn't even been selling that well.
That's too bad.
I mean, it's that problem, which is a movie that nobody knows about from a filmmaker that nobody knows about. So the only way that it can sell is by someone saying that you have to see this. So if we can get people to watch Personal Problems from this recommendation, good on us. And
Into the Spider-Verse, if you've heard of it, folks.
But you know what I gotta say about Into the Spider-Verse? I mean, I said this back when I talked about Aquaman, but it's really important to me when people are passionate about what they're making, especially if it's a brand. And you can feel, especially Phil Lord and Chris Miller and the three directors, like they're passionate about this stuff. And it actually means something to them beyond like, give me that cash.
Well, I do like Lord and Miller, and I'm sad that they were fired from the Han Solo movie.
The Han Solo movie would have been great.
And I think, a complaint that I guess I've had about some of the Marvel movies is that they're sort of bland and have this house style that's imposed on them. And I mean, if superhero movies are to be the dominant form of blockbuster cinema, then this is, I guess, what I want to see, like kind of distinctive, idiosyncratic
visions of this kind of stuff. Yeah. Hopefully Lord and Miller get hired to, I don't know, make Venom 2. Can you imagine their Venom movie? Probably been great.
Yeah.
They're like, no, don't give us our shitty properties.
And then it'll be taken away from them and
halfway through,
or it'll just be recut into a sliver like The Predator was from Shane Black.
Yeah. Like they hire Shane Black and he gives them a Shane Black movie and they're like, well, this is not what we wanted. And it's like, who did you think you hired?
Yeah, and so then they cut it down to something that's neither fish nor fowl.
Yeah, and makes no money and nobody likes. And they're like, well, Shane Black's fault, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so on our Patreon this week, we talked about cinephilia. Specifically, a movie called Cinemaniacs. Or Cinemaniac.
Cinemania.
Oh, Cinemania.
That's right, Cinemania.
Okay. And it's a movie that Will knew that I had never heard about. What is it about, Will?
It's about, I think, a half dozen absolute cinephiles who live in the New York area who spend all day, every day going to see movies. if you live in a city that has a thriving rep culture, you will see some of these types of people in your city.
And so we kind of deconstruct who these people are, what it means to be a person like this. Is this in our future? Real fun and very sad stuff. But I'm probably going to drop... I made a few lists of things that I really like this year, like film books, etc., favorite Blu-ray. So I'll mention that as well. Tying it into that obsession theme of the podcast. You can listen to that if you become a Patreon subscriber. It's $5 a month, and you get 4 episodes, new ones, and you get our whole back catalog. And you can do that at patreon.com/theimportantcinemaclub.
Do we have any letters this week?
We do have some letters. As per usual, you can send us letters at importantcinemaclubpodcast@gmail.com. And our first letter is from Michael Carr, and it goes... Just finished listening to your Jack Nicholson episode, and I have to say it was one of your best. The choice to eschew discussion of films such as The Shining, Cuckoo's Nest, and many others more celebrated performances by old eyebrows in favor of a detailed dissection of anger management was inspired, and it was one of those highbrow, lowbrow balancing acts that keeps me coming back to this podcast week after week. Bravo. Well, thank you very much. I think that we had a lot of fun talking about Jack Nicholson, and people clicked on it because they know who Jack Nicholson is.
That's all that matters.
I was curious to learn more about Jack's time with Roger Corman, however, having previously been unaware that he was yet another alumni of the most venerated deity in the pantheon of ICC film worship. I would love a Patreon episode that delves further into the relationships between Corman and his more successful acolytes, in particular Peter Fonda, Francis Ford Coppola, Martin Scorsese, Jonathan Demme. I feel like we've talked about this a lot.
Well, we've talked about Corman. We could do just a whole podcast, like a whole separate podcast every week talking about some aspect of Roger Corman's career. I wouldn't want to because it would drive me insane.
Yes.
Because that's too many bad movies.
But he did work with a lot of very famous and later on successful directors who kind of cut their teeth making films for him.
Particularly that 70s New Hollywood era.
Like, I don't think there's many 90s Roger Corman directors that came out and went on to do massive things. I'm sure there is.
Well, but what there are a lot of technical people who started work with him, like makeup artists, effects artists, stunt people, I don't know.
Like, I was thinking of, like, 90s pictures like... what is it called? Brain Dead. The one that stars Bill Pullman and Bill Paxton, which was directed by Adam Simon, who went on to do, like, a whole bunch of, like, TV shows and stuff like that.
I think you're forgetting a filmmaker by the name of Jim Wynorski.
That's right. Who went on to great things. And I'm not even making a joke about this, but the director of Idle Hands, Rodman Flender.
Oh, yeah.
He started in the Corman factory. He made a film called The Unborn, which was his take on Repulsion and the cinema of David Cronenberg, which is actually a lot of fun if you go in knowing those things.
I'm sure you've heard the story that Ron Howard often tells about making Grand Theft Auto, where he had to film a demolition derby and he had an audience of something like 17 people to work with. And he said, Roger, I need more extras. I can't do a demolition derby audience with 17 people. And Corman says to him, Ron, you're going to have to do it with 17 people. But if you do a good job, you'll never have to work for me again.
Well, after Marty made a Boxcar Bertha for him, he has a story that he showed it to John Cassavetes, and Cassavetes went, never make a film like this ever again.
Yeah, he said, like, it's good for what it is, but you spend a year of your life making shit.
Oh, man.
And then... Did you know that Scorsese went to Roger Corman when he was looking for money for Mean Streets?
And Corman, said, can you make it black main characters?
Yeah, can you make it blaxploitation? He apparently what he said was, could you swing a little? Which is really funny because the movie is like, it's such an Italian Catholic mob movie.
I bet it wouldn't have had the reputation that it had if he had made it for Roger Corman.
Probably not. No.
And that it's completely different because of that.
Yeah.
All right. The letter actually continues. While I'm making requests, would you ever consider doing a Joe Esterhaus episode? The man is a walking quote machine, and even though you've already covered some of the ground in the Verhoeven episode between Flashdance and an Alan Smithy film, there's a lot to talk about. So Joe Esterhaus, if people don't know, was one of the most paid screenwriters at a certain point in time for spec scripts for films that were essentially never made.
Yeah, he was a big, like, high concept screenwriter.
Did he write Jagged Edge? I think he did.
I think he wrote, I don't know if he wrote Jagged Edge, but he wrote Jaded.
Jaded, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. And I think that was made by
William
man,
Friedkin.
yeah.
Yeah, but his main
When I
ones-
went to LA, every room has a theme and there's props from the thing, because we were at the MGM Hotel, not LA, sorry, Las Vegas. And the room we were in was the Jade Room.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
So there was like a hat from the movie and other stuff like that.
But yeah, his big one was obviously Basic Instinct.
Yeah.
And that, which, along with Fatal Attraction.
Showgirls, because he wrote that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and Showgirls was obviously a very hyped movie at the time, which he was paid, $3 million for? Something absurd.
He sold scripts with titles like Male Pattern Baldness for like $2 million.
He also apparently wrote a script about like a politician who has sex with a cow or something that was like a very popular underground spec script.
Really?
Yeah, I learned this from one of his books. So let's talk about his books.
Yeah, so I read, I think it was Hollywood Animal, which is his biography, which he said was inspired by Kurt Vonnegut and Slaughterhouse-Five, so it's told out of chronology, which has like a bunch of just like salacious anecdotes with like filmmakers that he's met. Like Ivan Reitman is the most humorless man that he's ever met, or that when he met with Steven Spielberg, Spielberg was like playing with a train set, and that when Joe said like, oh, I want to be paid this, Steven's like, no, I'm going to pay you what I said. Don't you want to work with Steven Spielberg? And I found the book very charming when I read it, not knowing, the kind of person that he is. And I'm sure that, I read it when I was 12, because it was one of the books I got out of the library. I'm sure it does not hold up. And he's written many gross stuff since then.
Yeah, that's one of those books that I think he wrote that book kind of after the bottom fell out on his career.
100%.
So he was like, fuck it, nothing left to lose.
Exactly.
I'll write this, absurd fantasy memoir.
Where at one point he sleeps with Sharon Stone or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know what to believe.
But you read one of the ebooks that he wrote, or Amazon singles, if we're doing branding.
Yeah, it was probably like 100 pages or something. I read Heaven and Mel, which was his account of writing a script for Mel Gibson about the Maccabees. And, it was a very salacious book, and it's such a disingenuous... I had a great time reading it, but it's such a disingenuous book because he became a born-again Christian, basically. But he also really considers himself a friend of the Jews.
Yeah.
Always talking about how much he loves the Jews and what a great ally and hero of the Jewish community he is. And he teamed up with Mel Gibson, thinking that Mel Gibson really seriously wanted to atone for his anti-Semitism, and things didn't work out too well. He accuses Mel Gibson of having buried his Maccabees script, like out of malice. And frankly,
he wasn't really doing anything in the industry at the time.
Well, probably what it was. So he quotes Mel Gibson as saying, "I've never seen a worse first draft in all my years of working." And frankly, Mel Gibson was probably right.
Yeah.
It probably was a terrible draft.
I just realized that I'm like jumping to the defense of Mel Gibson.
Well, okay.
It's two bad men.
These assholes deserve each other because he does give you a lot of really salacious stuff about Mel Gibson.
Does he?
Ugly, horrible stories. And I wouldn't recommend the book to anyone except that I had a great time reading it.
So Michael Carr ends his letter with, P.S. Do an Ozu episode and quote Schrader as much as possible.
We will inevitably do an Ozu episode.
We will. As we grow old and we're like, I guess we got to do Ozu now. And
I like Ozu.
And I got to take the... what was it called?
Donald Ritchie's book?
No. It was Schrader's book that he also wrote it
Transcendental Style.
Yeah, which I tried to read recently and I went, yeah, maybe not at this point in my life.
Okay.
And so our next letter goes, Hi, Justin and Will. My name's Guy, and I'm a ranger in the great expansive wastes of Australia. What does a ranger mean? Is it like someone who, like, fights roving gangs as they go? Or it's probably like a forest ranger?
Yeah, it's like Yogi Bear, you know?
Wait, Yogi Bear is not the ranger.
No, but there's a ranger in it who tried to stop him from stealing picnic baskets.
I've been listening to your podcast for a very long time now. This made me remember the Dan Aykroyd voiced Yogi Bear in the movie. And I can't get enough. You guys have taught me a lot about film and have helped me ascend to near cosmic brain status.
Wow.
I always look forward to that email notification that there's a new one. I travel a lot and spend a lot of time on my own, and you're both joined me from the Northern Territory deserts to the forests of Kangaroo Island.
Well, I'm glad. Not literally, I hope.
It feels like, we've traveled the world, even though I've never left my apartment in Toronto. And I just wanted to say thanks for keeping me company, even though you don't know me. Parasocial relationships are good for something, huh? My question is, what are some tips?
Did you hear me whispering in your ear?
Yeah, we're the, what is it, ASMR or whatever?
Oh, yeah.
We'll do a special Patreon tier where we whisper talk about movies and just read from, like, Paul Schrader's Transcendental Cinema.
Yeah, or like we could be like Vincent Gallo, where for a certain amount of money we will father your child.
My question is, what are some tips or pointers you can give to young and upcoming filmmakers, i.e. you're studying film at uni, like I'm planning on doing? What should I be doing in my spare time? What should I be focusing on? Should I be engaging with film festivals and attempt programming them? Or is it as simple as speaking to your peers and filtering out the superhero filmmakers for the galaxy brains? Uh-oh, I hope you didn't hear my top 10 list this episode. Sorry if this is a weak question or has been asked before. Thanks again for all the laughs and knowledge, Ranger Guy. Oh man, it's good that his name is Ranger and he became a ranger. Okay, so, Will, what are some tips for young filmmakers?
I wouldn't know. You're a filmmaker. What worked for you?
I would just say, just keep making movies with your friends, keep writing scripts, and keep watching movies. I said this before, but like, you know, if you know what you like and what you don't like when watching movies, you can bring that to your filmmaking as well. The thing is, like, filmmaking is hard. And you have to deal with other people unless you're an animator of some kind. So make friends that want to do it with you. Because unless you're like a millionaire, like no one's going to want to do it with you. You're going to a university, you'll definitely find tons of people. And I would say, if it's short projects, try to work with non-actors in the acting roles. And I'll tell you why. Number one, because they'll probably be very energized to be doing this. And number two, you'll get a performance that'll be different than people that are starting uni and want to be actors, which is a little bit scary.
I would say take the time to learn film grammar.
Yes, the basics, like what crossing the line is, which is really the only thing you need to know about film. And it's something that you could watch film for decades and not even realize that you know it, but you do, and you'll screw it up when you start making movies.
You must learn how to pick a lock and how to steal film. You must learn how to milk a cow. Only then will you know how to make a film.
Do you think Herzog had a good laugh when he was like Scrooge McDucking like all the money that the people paid to be in his film school?
There's a quote from John Waters where he says, always put sex and violence in your first movie because that way someone will want to see it.
Yeah, that's right. I see like anyone can make a movie now, and there's like indie filmmakers who have like 30 feature films on their IMDb, and I'm like, these have never been released, and I don't think anybody would probably want to watch them either.
Yeah.
But yeah, just keep doing stuff. And even if you just do it for yourself, because there's a pressure to like put it on the internet and wait for a reaction, and you're not going to get the reaction that you want. So just do it for you and your friends, because it was easier to make films when I just did it on mini DV, and then I would bring like a VHS tape and pop it in at my friend's house and we would all watch it, than putting it on the internet and waiting for a reaction to it. Also, don't spend tons of money on a short film. Just don't do it. Like, it's a waste of time. If you're going to spend it, might as well just make it a feature. Shoot it in 13 days, you know, just like Edgar G. Ulmer would. You know, prove them wrong out there, and don't waste all your money on a short film. And I'm not speaking from experience, because I've never had money, so I've never been able to spend it. But I've seen people who have done it, and you get very polished, great-looking things that nobody would want to watch.
Max out your credit cards.
Yeah. Sell your comic book collection and you'll have a Clerks on your hands. Oh, one more pointers. If you're making a short film, there's one thing that you need to remember. Nobody cares.
Yes.
That's the biggest problem I have watching short films, is that the filmmakers think that we're going to buy in instantly and that like viewers don't. Even though you're making a short film, give it a 3-act structure. Like, just people don't care, and don't assume that they will. Alrighty. So that's it for letters this week. As per usual, you can send us letters at importantcinemaclubpodcast@gmail.com. And next week, emergency entry on our schedule, it's going to be the Hong Kong director Ringo Lam.
You mean the guy who inspired Reservoir Dogs?
Yeah, with City on Fire. A movie I don't like very much.
I just saw it for the first time this week.
Really?
Well, we'll talk about it a bit. Ringo Lam, one of the iconic Hong Kong action directors of the 80s and 90s, who died this week. And there are some major blind spots for me in his filmography, so I'm interested in exploring it a bit.
Gonna finally sit down and watch Prison on Fire?
I've seen Prison on Fire when I was in high school, but I haven't seen School on Fire.
Oh, that one's great.
Yeah.
Or Prison on Fire 2.
I've seen that too.
Oh, wow.
So I've seen those too. But
yeah, I have never seen those.
Yeah, but I just saw City on Fire. I'm going to watch School on Fire. Probably, I don't know, Maximum Risk.
Yeah, Maximum Risk. Ringo Lam being the most prolific of big time. I mean, John Woo was more prolific, but as far as people that have worked with Van Damme, Ringo Lam is on top because he made 3 movies,
including Replicant, which I have seen.
I like Replicant. It's very serious for a clones of Jean-Claude Van Damme movie.
It's a bit silly.
Yeah, I don't remember it very well. Maybe I'll check it out this week.
Also, Ringo Lam, a York University graduate.
He was?
Yeah, he studied film in Toronto.
He made one of my favorite wuxia pictures, Burning Paradise, which was produced by Choi Hark, and is hilariously violent. It's like someone's forcing him to make like a kind of kung fu wirework film, so he decided, I'm going to make it as gross and dark as I can, but still pack it full of action. So if people want to check out his films, we didn't even mention probably the film that he's most famous for, which is Full Contact.
Oh, yes.
The Chow Yun-fat film.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that too. So I guess I've seen some of his films.
Yeah, but I would probably recommend, if you guys want to check out his work, Full Contact is like the famous one. And I'm trying to think of another one that doesn't star Chow Yun-fat that people can see. I don't know, Replicant or Maximum Risk is Hollywood films to get a different angle on him.
Tower on Fire.
No. It wasn't called Tower on Fire. His last one.
Yeah,
it was bad. Don't watch that one. But that's what we're doing next week. And until then, my name's Justin McClung.
I'm Will Sloan.
Thanks for listening.
I'd like to address 2 deaths from the last week on this episode. One, late breaking, Bob Einstein, better known to the world as Super Dave Osborne.
A very big part of my childhood that I have almost forgotten everything about.
He was a big part of your childhood in the sense that he was on TV a lot when
Why
you were a
was
kid.
he on TV? So it must have been like Canadian content.
It was on YTV. I think it was Canadian content.
Because, so Super Dave Osborne, who is it for international listeners who don't know who that is?
So his real name is Bob Einstein, and he is the brother of Albert Brooks. And if you don't know Super Dave, you probably saw him on Arrested Development.
Yeah, he played the interpreter to Martin Short's character. And he also appears in that one scene where Albert Brooks goes into the shoe store in
Modern Romance.
Modern Romance.
Very funny scene.
But mostly he was known as the Super Dave Osborne character, who was a stuntman. And what was the punchline to every one of the jokes, Will?
The punchline would be that he would be horribly mangled, like a train would run him over, or he would fall off the CN Tower, and it would usually end with him like his
squished,
his body squished. So it was like his head and his shoes right underneath his head.
I don't understand
that joke.
Why it was so like omnipresent in our childhood, but it can only be because of that Canadian content thing.
That show of his was a variety show where it would have, like, I remember Celine Dion was on it. It would have musical acts on it, and then every episode would climax with his stunt for the episode, which was just the same joke
over and over again. Yeah, and like I guess I feel like it was probably a time filler as well, because I have memories of it filling, like when a show would end, to like break up the time until the next one starts. You can throw in a little Super Dave Osborne segment.
Yeah. So anyway, rest in peace, rest in power to a real one. Also, I do like Bob Einstein though. He's a funny man.
I'm trying to think of like what else he was in. Oh, he was in Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yes,
like a main role. Yeah, that's right.
And also he was on some episodes of Norm Macdonald's podcast. I think he was like well known among like comedy types, you know, as being a funny guy. And he also made a Super Dave movie called The Extreme Adventures of Super Dave.
That's right. He also has a cameo in Ocean's 13 as Matt Damon's dad.
So also passed away this week was Robert Kerman, also known as Arbola. He starred in Cannibal Holocaust, also Cannibal Ferox, also Eaten Alive. That's right, he was in at least 3, maybe more, Italian cannibal movies. In Cannibal Holocaust, he famously says at the end, I wonder who the real cannibals are. But in addition to that, under the name Arbola, he appeared in dozens of porn movies.
Oh, he did? I didn't know that.
Including Debbie Does Dallas.
Wow, what a filmography. And I don't even mean that like sarcastically, even though it sounded like it.
It is an amazing career.
Like he's in fucking Cannibal Holocaust, like one of the like most famous films of all time.
Well, I mean, like just from that, he could, you know, do very well on the convention circuit. On the Rialto Report episode that I listened to, he sounded rather sad about how his life had gone. And to that I say, you don't need to be sad.
You know what? He appeared in 2002 as the tugboat captain in Spider-Man.
Right.
And you know how that happened, right? it's got to be Bob Murawski that got him in there.
Oh,
it
had to have been. Yeah.
It definitely wasn't Sam Raimi. So I have a feeling Bob Murawski was in the background kind of pushing it forward. Wait, what was that story that I heard this week about Bob Murawski that I messaged you about? Oh, The Day the Clown Cried. Mm-hmm. That's right. That for like the last few decades, Bob Murawski has been emailing people that are in charge of the copyright, seeing if you could get it and figure out how you could put it out.
Well, maybe now that he has some new clout after The Other Side of the Wind.
Yeah. I mean, Bob Murawski, if we're giving an award for like Cinema Person of the Year, he's definitely getting it. So.
Still alive, fortunately.
Yeah, still alive.
Anyway, rest in peace, Arbola. Rest in peace, Super Dave Osborne. Rest in peace, Ringo Lamb. More on him later.
Yeah, more on him later.